All right, it's always fun for me when I get to speak to the king, Mr. Jim Leyritz. How you doing today, sir?
What's happening, guys? How are we doing today?
Doing great, man. Now, Jim, it's important that I'm very thrilled that you were available to talk to us because you were part of the Yankee dynasty. You're a catcher for the Yankees, so there's nobody I know who's a better person to ask. How in the world and how impressed are you with what Gary Sanchez is doing?
Well, I think you're better off saying that I'm more qualified because I was part of the young guns that first came up in the 90s, and we kind of have the rebirth of the young guns coming up right now. What I will say is with Gary Sanchez, yes, I think he is off to a great start. One of the things that I always tell people that, because he is hitting so well, one of the things I always tell people to be a little cautious because, you got to remember that Shane Spencer and Kevin Moss and some of these other names that were going to be coming up and got off to such great starts, did well, but didn't really, some of them didn't. Some of them did well. Some of them didn't pan out. So I think you got to be cautious as far as the offense go. For me, though, what's more impressive than anything else is really his work behind the plate, and I think that's something that, as a catcher myself, and as Girardi, I'm sure sees, it's been more impressive than anything else. Is number one, he's got an above-average arm, and he's going to learn as he begins to catch more and more of these pitchers at the big league level. To me, I think I'm more impressed with his catching side than I really am with his hitting side.
Jim Leyritz joining us right here on 104.5 The Team. So the thing that sets him apart, because those are the names that I've been saying right here on the show. Like I'm cautiously optimistic with the Kevin Mosses and Shane Spencers of the past. The work behind the plate. If you're a fan and you're really looking forward to a future with Gary Sanchez, that's what sets him apart.
Yes, I mean that. The hitting's going to be there because you can tell that he's a pretty good hitter. At the same time, what's more important, and is proven over time with the Yankees, that the pitching and the defense is what really wins in the postseason. And Brian McCann is a good catcher, above average catcher, but not anything physically compared to what Gary Sanchez brings as far as athletic ability behind the plate. And also, I said, with that arm, he's got that Pudge Rodriguez arm. To me, that's something that I look at, that this kid could be around for a long time, whether he's hitting 400 or whether he's hitting 200, because he's able to really work with the pitching staff to be able to dictate a game. And like I said, to me, that's been more impressive to watch him behind the plate from what he's done.
And Jim, how difficult is it for a young player like Sanchez to start developing trust and respect from veteran pitchers, because Sanchez is the one calling the games for them?
Well, yeah, I think he's fortunate because when he got there, all those guys were struggling. I think an influx of new ideas or maybe new approaches might be something that would be good for these guys. One of the things I remember when I came up in 1990 as one of the young guns is guys like Dave Righetti, guys like Steve Sachs, Dave LaPointe. The one thing they loved wasn't necessarily how well I was playing, but just the enthusiasm that I brought back to the game that they had been missing. That they got kind of old because these guys were veterans and these guys are free agents and had been around a while. The electricity that these young kids bring because they're hungry, is very similar to what we went through in the early 90s. I mean, these kids have been down there in the minor leagues for the last 5 to 7 years, and with guys like, McCann, Russell Martin, then you go back to the infield with A-Rod, Jeter, Cano, Teixeira. These guys have been down there waiting for their opportunity. And you know what? Now they're finally getting that chance, and they're coming up here hungry. And I think that's something that's been missing from the Yankees for a while.
Jim Leyritz with us here, 104.5 The Team. Levack and Wolf, Gosfeld in for Wolf. I'm glad you said that because you look at the last World Series team in 2009, it's pies in the face. They're joking around. They're having fun. This team is almost, before the kids got there, seemed too businesslike. Does that really hurt a team after, 162 games of just being too businesslike?
Well, I think in New York you have to have that outlet. I mean, you talk about the pies in the face in the 2009, Nick Swisher was behind all that. And he brought a personality to that team that, that took it a little bit out of the business realm. And I think that's, like I said, these kids coming up, that excitement that they bring to the field, that little swagger that, hey, listen, I've been waiting down in the minor leagues forever, and I'm finally going to get my chance, I'm going to take advantage of it. There's going to be, like I said, there's going to be some guys. I still think about the poster with me, Matt Noakes, Kevin Moss, and Roberto Kelly and Alan Mills.
I had it.
And if you and you go back and you look, I fortunately was able to make it through and hang around a long time. Matt Noakes did okay for a couple years. Alan Mills had had a pretty good career, but some of those guys like Kevin and Roberto really didn't pan out to what we thought was going to happen. So there's going to be some of these guys. But the only reason I say that I know these kids are a lot like I was when I first came up, because last year, before he got hurt in fantasy camp, I sat down with Greg Bird and talked to Greg Bird. And he sounded, what he was sharing with me, sounded exactly like what we were going through in the minor leagues back in the early 90s or the 80s, late 80s, when I was part of that. It sounded like these guys were going through the same thing. They were chomping at the bit to get up there. They felt like they belonged up there, but they were never given the opportunity. And now some of these guys are taking advantage of it.
All right, Jim Leyritz with us. So last year we talked to you every week, and you kept comparing this farm system to that farm system that you were part of. Are we closer as Yankee fans when you look at the Greg Birds and the Gary Sanchez and the Aaron Judges to that 96 team, or are we still in like the 92, 93 phase?
I hate to think, but I think we're right around 93, 94. I think it's, depending on what the Yankees do, if they go out and get a couple guys, now that they've freed up some money, getting A-Rod off the books as far as the salary cap goes, that opens up another $25, $30 million that they didn't expect to have. They have the opportunity to use some of this youth and bring in a Paul O'Neill, a Wade Boggs, the guys that they were bringing in 92, 93, 94, that really shaped what that team of the 96 became.
We talked about all these comparisons, Sanchez to who he might compare to, the minor league system who would make compare to, but I can't find a comparison to somebody who's 6'7", 275 pounds. That is Aaron Judge. Jim, can you compare him to anybody you may have played against or played with in your career?
Well, I mean, I said all along, just because he was in pinstripes, that he reminded me a lot of Dave Winfield. He's a tremendous athlete besides a baseball player. And I think, the only one that I've seen lately that has his physique and has his ability, athletic ability, is a guy like Giancarlo Stanton. Now, I don't want to put that label on him because I don't think he's as pure as a home run hitter as Giancarlo, but I think that potential is there. I saw him play last year in the Arizona Fall League. I was out there for about 2 weeks, and there are some holes in the swing, but there's holes in all of our swings. It's a matter of whether we can make adjustments at that big league level to kind of play the chess game. And I really think that this kid could be somebody special also now that he's finally going to get a chance.
Jim Leyritz with us right here on 104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. Leyritz, when you tell me as a Yankee fan to keep my cool, Sanchez is got the prowess behind the plate of a leader. You just compared, just mainly physically, but still the comparison was made of Aaron Judge to Dave Winfield. I can't keep calm, man.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, to think about where we were 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, when we were ready to, hang everybody and not become Yankee fans because we were so bad, all of a sudden, and again, I give Cashman credit. I also say, well, he kind of had a good out with what he did. He went and got these Miller. He went and got Chapman. And I think, and I will give him credit. Maybe he did think, okay, if we can't compete, we can trade these guys and get what we need to help our minor league system and help our major league, guys get an opportunity. If he really had that in his mind, he's smarter than I gave him credit for, and he reminds me of exactly what Gene Michael, did in the early '90s when he decided that, I'm going to have this opportunity to build from within. I'm going to take advantage of it while I can, and he did a pretty good job with that.
Jim, you've worked with these, we've been calling them the baby bombers, Greg Bird, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, the kids coming up. Who should we think has the highest ceiling as of right now?
Well, I mean, again, I go back to that poster, because I was a catcher, I think I was the one that kind of stayed around longer, because you can dictate a game on both sides as far as catching and pitching. And I think Gary Sanchez, to me, has the best opportunity because you don't have to be a great hitter to be a catcher if you're a good catcher. But I'm really disappointed that we didn't get to see Greg Bird, because I thought when he came up last year that this kid came up into a tight pennant race, up into a position where he had to replace a guy that was having a Hall of Fame year, and really took the bull by the horns. And again, I met him after that, before he got hurt this year, and to talk to the kid, it was just a kid that was embracing this opportunity and this chance. I think when he comes back and he comes back healthy, that he could be something pretty special too.
Jim Leyritz with us here, 104.5 The Team.
Levack, you are so excited, and I don't want to bring you down from your excitement, but Jim, I have to ask, at least maybe to calm down Levack a bit, what are reasonable expectations for the rest of the season for the Yankees? And don't try to pander to Levack and say it's a World Series. Reasonable expectations.
They can buy tickets.
Well, you know what? I have to keep Levack excited, because when they made those trades, I think all of us, including us Yankee fans like Levack, thought, okay, well, we cashed in this year, we'll just think about next year. And then all of a sudden now we're looking at these kids and they're 2.5 games out. And they're playing some pretty exciting ball. Realistically, do we see that this may not continue through September? Possibly. At the same time, I think, you got to be excited. You got to be thinking, okay, come this off season, we're shoppers now, because we have a nucleus of kids that if they're given some veteran leadership and they bring in a couple guys, and work on that pitching staff a little bit, the starting pitching, you know what? We could be right back in it next year.
Jim Leyritz with us. Before we let you leave, King, we got to ask you this one. Tim Tebow works out for 40 scouts today. When you see a guy like Tim Tebow who hasn't played since high school, and everybody's trying to make him out to be a real contender, what do you think?
I think it's a joke. And it's a complete joke. I think, you know what, it's one of the situations where, you know what, Tim Tebow's a great guy. I love his Christian attitude. If he was doing this for charity, to raise money for a donation for a charity or a foundation, and doing it for that reason, I'd say, okay, you know what, let's see what he's got. At the same time, if he really seriously thinks he can be a baseball player, I'm sorry to say it, but I agree with most of the experts that say he has zero chance of even sniffing one day in the big leagues. He might get a chance in the minor leagues. I won't say no, because somebody will use him as a promo and make money off him. At the same time, as far as any opportunity for this guy to be a major league ball player, I think it's pretty much 0 to none.
Jim Leyritz, man, the one of my favorite Yankees growing up, and one of my favorite guys to talk to now. You mentioned charity. You're always up to something. What are you working on now?
Yeah, well, I'm still involved with the group Pink Tie in New York that raises money on Long Island for all charities and foundations. And then I'm also now, which is something new, I work for a company out in California now, so I can stay home more, called Sports One Marketing, which is Warren Moon's company, and a guy named David Meltzer. And they do the same thing. Basically, we have different platforms where we go out and we raise money for charities and foundations that need help through different programs. And it's just great work. It's great to be able to give back and to be a part of David Meltzer and Warren Moon's company. It's been a blessing for me. So I'm looking forward to the next year ahead, what we might be going to do.
Well, thanks for keeping my future dynasty dreams alive. We appreciate your time, Leyritz. Anytime you're around, I'd love to treat you to 18 holes of golf.
All right, brother. Thank you guys for having me, man.
You got it, man. Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Jim Leyritz right there. He's saying the future's bright. I've been saying that too, but it makes more sense when he says it. We have Zach By tracked down one of the